Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Missoula Organization of Realtors Candidate Forum. My name is Rusty Vanover-Beck. I'm the chair of the Government Affairs Committee. I'm pleased that each of you took the time to be here today. Thank you. I'll be asking each of you 3 questions to help the process fresh, keep the process fresh and interesting. We will randomly choose the order to be answered by ward. The timekeeper will show you a yellow card when you have 30 seconds left. At that point, please prepare your closing thoughts. When the red card is shown, it's time to move on, and we will start out with a brief introduction from each of our candidates, and I think that we'll just go from one on through to this.
All right. Well, thank you, Rusty. My name is Ryan Morton. I'm running for office in Ward 1, which is parts of East Missoula, the Rattlesnake downtown, and North Side, newly added this year. So my introduction is pretty simple. Most of you already know me from working with MBIA on government affairs. I know how diligently you work on policy issues, and I'm interested very much in your point of view and policy recommendations, and I look forward to being able to work with all of you in the future. I'm a Missoula boy. I was adopted at birth into Missoula, grew up here, and not very many people, I find, are able to say that anymore. So it's kind of refreshing to have someone doing that. My basic platform is to promote green building, which is a low impact type of development, low impact on the environment. And we, at my former employment, MBIA, we actually started the Green Belt program and have been promoting it around the state, and that's something I'd like to support at the local level with incentives. I'd also like to restructure the self-insurance tool that the city has and offer it to small businesses that maybe do not have an option for health insurance for their employees. And since the decision to increase density in Missoula seems to already have occurred, I'm not sure we have the infrastructure to support it, and I would like to begin by restructuring the sewer utility to better serve the needs of Missoula and replace the network elements that seem to be falling apart in certain areas. The last thing, I just want you to know that I do not promote increases in taxes or special improvement districts unless it is balanced off in some other form of tax reduction. So that's what you could look forward to me as a candidate. And like I said, I'm interested in working with you. I know how your systems work, and I know how diligent you are and how passionate you are and how much you take the time to look at the whole picture and not just one single viewpoint. So thank you for having me, and I look forward to answering your questions. Thanks.
Okay. My name is Houseman. I'm president of the United Steelworkers, Local 885. We represent the workers out at Smurfit Stone and out at a small trucking group. And I am also a candidate for City Council in Ward 2. As to background, I grew up in Great Falls. I moved over here to attend the university, got done with a BA in English Literature and Psychology, and decided to make a living in Missoula. And after working several odd jobs and trying to find something that paid more than $10 an hour, I was lucky enough to get on at Smurfit Stone. As to reasons why I'm running for City Council, I feel very strongly that there needs to be a commitment to service and a commitment to availability to the community, and I want to make that. I want to be able to do that. I've already I do the constituents calls. I make the effort to best serve the 400 members in my local union, and if I can do that for the several thousand people in Ward 2, I'd love to do that.
John Hendrickson, I'm running in Ward 2, which is pretty diverse. It's all the west side now, Mullen Road, Grand Creek, Reserve Street, Flynn Lane, and down to Russell. I am the incumbent. I lived in my ward for 19 years now. I moved to Montana 43 years ago. I know I don't look that old, but it's true. I've been active in, well, Grand Creek activities and Missoula activities for the whole 19 years on the Homeowners Association, serving on different committees and Friends of Grand Creek and so on. My main thrust or interest on council are many, but the top three are the budget, infrastructure, and jobs. Jobs is a tough road to hoe, and it's no one has the answers, but I think it's going to take a lot of work and coalition building. But the budget has always been my main focus. I've been called the budget hawk on the council because I've always asked hard questions as to why and why we're doing this and where the money's coming from. I voted continually against increased taxes when not necessary and impact fees that do affect the business community. I'm self-employed. I've been self-employed for 24 years. I did at one time, I worked for a subsidiary of General Mills, ran a department, had to make tough decisions as far as cuts, layoffs, and prepare budgets, so I'm very familiar with the business community. I'm ad hoc rep to the chamber, and that was the chosen position by me, and I've gone, I'm off? Okay, I got the red sign. Thank you, Mayor.
My name is John Quant. I'm running for City Council in Ward 3, which is primarily U District to Russell, and then from the water south down to Sussex. I'm currently a stay-at-home father, and we moved here 3 years ago from Seattle. My wife is a Montana native. That's what brought us back. I loved it here, so decided to make it home. And I have owned a plumbing company in Seattle for 6 years. I don't currently own it anymore, but owned it for 6 years. So I do understand the ups and downs of self-employment and business and rapid growth. Being involved in the real estate industry in Seattle through plumbing showed me a lot of the good and the bad of what can happen with growth. You know, I think right now our biggest issue that's on everybody's mind is jobs. That's all there is to it. Without jobs, we can't sell homes, we can't move property, we can't build, can't even feed your family. So, you know, I think that we need to make sure that as a city as a whole that we focus on getting good paying jobs here. That's probably my number one issue that I'd look towards. We spend too much time allowing places like Walmart and other low paying companies to come here and set up shop. Takes from the mom and pop shops. And we don't invite enough industry that's going to stay here and provide good paying jobs and keep the university students here and have a trickle down effect within the community. So that'd be one of my ultimate goals, would be to find a way to work with the business community to bring in better industry.
That's it. Thank you, John. I'm Dick Haynes, and if you can't hear me, raise a hand. I've got a reputation worldwide for being a soft speaker and not being heard. I represent Ward 5, which is basically Linda Vista, Miller Creek, and now part of Wapakia. It's changed over time, so some have been in this ward, and then they've been taken out as we've changed ward boundaries. I spent 2 years in the military and a couple of years working for a private consultant down in Billings. I'm an engineering graduate from MSU. Before everybody hisses about that, my folks are Grizzly, and my dad played for the Grizzlies many years ago. So we have a lot of that. I'm a Montana native. After I left the consultant in Billings, I went to work for the Forest Service, and I spent 30 years with the Forest Service. In the course of that, I've lived in Missoula and Billings and Helena and Libby and Butte, and also in Oregon and Idaho. And it's interesting to see some of the arguments we're dealing with today, and they don't sound any different when I heard in those other places. And I'm not sure that they've solved those problems any better than what we're trying to do here. My biggest concern are jobs and support for business. And those would be my priorities, and I would hope that my voting in the past, both at the legislative level and here in the city council, would demonstrate that I do support that. There are times I voted against those because I thought there were other overriding factors, but for the most part, if you've got a business proposition, generally I'll do my best to support that. Right now, I think that we are at a serious problem in this city and our infrastructure, particularly our roads. I don't think we can continue to maintain the road system we have based on SIDs and the level of taxation that we now have. I think that has to change. So I look forward to your questions, and thanks for asking me to be here.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mike O'Haron, and I live on Reserve Street, right across the street from Meadow Hill School, which is Ward 5, and I'm running for office. And I hope to serve on the city council. I am a graduate of University of Montana here from the School of Forestry. I have my bachelor's and master's both from that school. And I currently work for the Department of Natural Resources and Conservation for the state in the timber program. So I'm working in the government side of the wood products industry. And I'm inspired to public service just because you know, I guess a timing thing in my life. I think a lot about problem solving and working together at various levels of community, local, state, and federal and regional. And I think a lot about problem solving and what they should do and what could be better. And you know, I thought it's time to take a turn and actually try to get involved and serve on the city council to help do that. I love Missoula. We have a great little house, little modest house on Reserve Street. And my wife is a Montana native from St. Regis. I'm originally from Chicago. I've been here about 17 years now, and we've lived in Ward 5 for about 6 years. And it's just a wonderful place, and I want to be a part of making it continue to be a wonderful place, and also to look for opportunities and solutions and ways to be creative at the city council level and the community level to take advantage of the times we're in and move our community forward in a real healthy, collaborative, and effective way. Thank you.
Thanks. My name's Marilyn Marler. I'm currently the City Council representative for Ward 6. I was first inspired to run for City Council 4 years ago when my husband and I bought our house. Actually, we bought our house about 10 years ago, but we noticed in Ward 6, which is an area that we really like, that it was lacking in real basic infrastructure like sidewalks and road maintenance and lack of parks. And that concerned us, and I felt like instead of just noticing it and being unhappy, it would be nice to get involved and try to do something to help make the neighborhood better. And I feel like I've had some opportunities to do that. And I've also had a chance to get involved in some broader issues to Missoula. And some of my colleagues up here have mentioned that the infrastructure issues and deficiencies in Missoula go far beyond just Ward 6. And that's something that is still important to me. I have enjoyed working with MOR in the last 4 years. I may not always agree with every perspective from the MOR, but I really enjoy the interactions, and you guys bring a really important perspective that I usually do agree with. When I'm not serving on City Council, I have a almost full-time job at the University of Montana. I'm a botanist. My specialty is invasive weeds, and I'm in charge of managing the natural areas, and that involves a lot of community outreach and leadership. In addition to that, because that's not enough to keep me busy, I suppose, my husband and I own a small business called Butterfly Properties. We're a small property management company. We own a couple of rentals, and we manage for other people as well. So I do have some experience to the small business side of things in Missoula. And I'm happy to be here, and thank you for hosting this forum, and thank you for all your involvement in local issues.
Hi, my name is Kathy Greathouse. I am running for Ward 6. I am a person who's been very involved in the business community, the real estate community. I am a member of the Missoula Building Industry Association. I have served as Government Affairs Chair, currently am Government Co-Chair. I work with the Steering Committee, Parade of Homes Compliance Chair. We work closely with MOR. I come from a real estate background, construction background, and business background. And I think that coming from those areas, I would be a very good person to work with. at least I would keep an open mind, understanding the situations that many of you come from today. I've served on the ADAPT board. I'm on the Franklin to the Fort leadership team, which is the central part of our ward. And we're working on local issues and trying to find out what people in the neighborhood really feel that they need to do. How do you feel about the zoning? How do you feel about the infrastructure? And watching that cost on infrastructure, because we're a moderate to low income neighborhood. And looking down the road, we don't want to price somebody out of a home over a sidewalk. So there's a lot of work to do in the ward, and I'm looking forward to that. And I look forward to working with the MOR, the MBIA, the Chamber, the community as a whole, because without strong jobs, without a strong business community, everything else is just going to have to sit on the back burner. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have composed 3 different questions, and we will allow 3 minutes per candidate for each question. And the first, in a random order, we'll go to Roy in Ward 2. Realtors believe that private property rights are fundamental to our free market economy system. A strong economy depends on preserving the right to freely own, use, and transfer real property. How would you balance the rights of private property owners to develop their property with the rights of the neighbors to affect the development?
As I commented in my form, I believe in a strong respect for social responsibility amongst private property owners, and that means that there's a level of involvement that, yes, you have the right to private property, and you do need to own, to manage it responsibly for the whole community, but also make it, it's still your property. You have the right to do with it as best fit. So as long as it conforms to certain community standards that we all respect and hold accountable. These are varied. I live in a neighborhood that has a lot of young families, and they are on a little larger lots, and they want to have the opportunity to build ADUs and accept the ability to provide an extra income to afford the homes that they currently live in. And I think that if City Council can directly affect that and best provide for those people, and I think that that's a responsible thing to do for the community, and it's also it will save a lot of costs in infrastructure. Along with that, though, any sort of development has a certain social responsibility to the community, and that social responsibility means working and conforming with the standards that the city sees fit, and making sure that, and along with that, the city has to gauge and work with the community to best provide those standards. So that's about what I have on that.
Thank you. We'll next go to John.
Okay. I think we, as a city, as a community, we have to strike a balance between the developers' rights and neighbors' rights. Developers definitely have rights, but the neighbors, do also. And I found that if you leave them alone, the developer and the neighbor usually can strike out a balance that's amicable to both. When the city gets involved, it just, well, I'll be PC. It screws things up. Examples would be the Flynn Lane and the Chickasaw. In Flynn Lane, we asked the neighbors and the developer to come together for happy reconciliation. They did. City didn't like it. Threw a monkey wrench into the deal. Flynn Lane, the Chickasaw subdivision is pretty much along the same road. I'd like the city take a step back, let them work it out. We do. The developers are taking into consideration what the city has put forth as far as what the vision with the UFTA and growth plan. At times it's at odds with the neighbors, and like I said, there has a happy balance has to be struck without taking sides one way or the other. And like I said, I feel if the developer and the neighbors can get together and strike out a balance, it's best for the community.
Thank you, John. Next, we'll go to Ryan
For the same question?
for the same question.
Okay, I was like, didn't know if they were switching it up or not. I guess there's 3 areas that I would look at, just the whole PAZ committee, so that's subdivision, zoning, and annexation. At subdivision, I would first and foremost respect people's constitutional property rights and their constitutional protections there. And that the way you balance that is to understand the regulations and base everything you do on sound facts. And I think many times, as an observer of the city council, the staff has sort of preemption in terms of what qualifies as proper facts, and we get decisions that are basically handled by staff. And I think there are plenty of opportunities when we can increase the amount of scrutiny that we have on those decisions at subdivision, because oftentimes there's circular reasoning, there are facts that really are questionable, there's expertise that is questionable, and we really need to correct that to protect people's constitutional rights, while at the same time maintaining the public interest concerns at subdivision, such as providing infrastructure and respecting the neighbor's rights. So I think we need to balance those constitutional protections a bit more in Missoula, because oftentimes we support a culture of want and take, and I think that's inappropriate, and I'd like to work against that by increasing the amount of scrutiny on the facts and on agencies like the Community Food and Agriculture Coalition that maybe does not have the expertise to be leading policy at subdivision. At zoning, I definitely support neighbors' right to protest. That is a big change, and I think we have to respect the neighbors' concerns there. In terms of the zoning rewrite, I've been watching that, and I feel very comfortable using that tool, and think I can be able to strike a good balance in terms of zoning recommendations by listening to both the neighbors' concerns and the developers' concerns. I think there's plenty of opportunities to do that, and I'd be happy to work on that. As far as annexation goes, I think we've almost completely stripped people's property rights to the point where people don't have any decision as to what happens on certain parts of their property. And I think that's entirely inappropriate, and I would lobby against that with the other council members and say, look, let's try a different route. I've tried that once on development agreements, and while many of you may not know what that is, I think it's one of those opportunities where the city got it wrong, and we can fix that, and I would work to fix that. So, and those three tiers of involvement, I think there's a lot of work we can do, and we can do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. I think I'd like to stay with that same question. We'll go to Ward 6. Marilyn, would you like to have that question reread, or?
Go ahead and read it.
How would you balance the rights of the private property owners to develop their properties with the rights of the neighbors to affect the development?
Yeah, this is an ongoing challenge. It's a really difficult thing. The same approach might not be taken in every single situation. I do feel very strongly about private property rights. That's one of the most American things that we have, and it's really a challenge to balance that against the public well-being. But that's ideally why we have policies. That's why we're supposed to be thoughtful in our considerations. We have to, when we're doing things like subdivisions, annexations, we have to consider what the community needs are, not just the community wants, as someone else mentioned up here. And we can't just be swayed every single time by conflicts between neighbors. The Chickasaw subdivision was one of the hardest things I've been involved with on city council, and it was an example of everything that this question embodies, because there were policy issues, there were very unhappy neighbors, there was the property owner had certain things he wanted to do with his land. It could have been a PhD dissertation just on everything that could go wrong in local government and private property rights. Some good things came out of that, but overall it was a really difficult project to work on. And we have to understand what our legal requirements are, how we can make decisions, and then try to go forward best we can with that, with the community's interests in mind as well as the property rights of the landowner. And sometimes, I hate to say it, but sometimes we have to be willing to risk getting sued when it's time to make a good decision. I felt like on a couple of subdivisions, I'm not going to mention the specific ones, we made some choices that were hard to make. You can't make everybody happy in some of them, and especially in the Chickasaw, it was a matter of not whether somebody would sue us, but which of the 4 parties involved were going to sue us. And right now, somebody is suing us over one of the decisions in that. It's difficult, what can I say? And it's something that I take very seriously, and I try to talk to as many folks as possible when these issues come up. And I think that we need to continue. Right now, we're spending a lot of our time in the PAZ committee on this zoning rewrite, which I think is really important, and we need to get through that. But when we finish with the zoning rewrite, we need to start having some more higher level policy discussions. And I'm going to stop right there because I might be talking all day. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And Kathy?
I'm Kathy Greathouse. I think that some developers and developments have worked very hard talking with the community that is surrounding the development. And I know that sometimes they reach an agreement, which is great for both the existing property owners and the new development. They take it through the process, the owner spends a lot of money, they get to City Council, and City Council people have a tendency to redesign. I don't know if there's any certified planners or anybody on City Council at this time. I think that because of that, it ends up in litigation. I think that the City Council needs to start working a little closer with the housing community. And not everybody wants to live in a cluster, so let's not force them into a cluster. A lot of people still want their single family, small yard, big yard, it doesn't matter, but let's leave some choices out there. I don't think that political platforms should dictate to everyone how we should live. I think that people in Montana move to Montana so that they can enjoy a country way of life more than urban. If we're going to go with smart growth or urban, let's get the community on the same page, educate them as to the direction that we are possibly going, and then we wouldn't have near the problems that we have when these subdivisions do come forward. If everybody's on the same page and understand where we're going, things will be just fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Next, I'd like to go to Ward 5. Mike?
Thank you. This is one of the key responsibilities of local government. And I think part of the answer is having an effective, reasonable, collaborative city council. It's key to this very thing of balancing property rights and maximizing development values for the owners, and balancing that with the maintaining of the quality of life for the citizens that live in our community. And I think, to some extent, people that own real estate in an urban center understand that there's going to be some trade-offs at times with maximizing their development values. And of course, if I was a person that owned a developable property in the city limits, I'd be looking to maximizing that value in one way or another. I think it really, answering these questions really requires effective collaborative work on the part of the city council, the mayor, the city administrators, and the community at large. We ran a small business in Missoula for 10 years, my wife and I, and as I mentioned in one of the other questions, I was a drywall hanger for 5 years, so I made a living in the construction industry for quite a while, and I currently work in wood products on the government side of that industry. So I can understand about building and expanding an urban center and maintaining the ability to develop land. And I made a living partially by doing that indirectly when I was hanging drywall. I think it's important, if you look ahead and think about people from the building industry and the real estate community, if they can reflect on the city council and the city government and say, hey, we have a really effective, reasonable city council, I think they're going to be happy. Each part of the group doesn't always, all the different groups don't get their way completely every time, but if we can all reflect on our city government or city council and say, they're very reasonable. They want to hear what I have to say. They listen effectively. They take my perspectives into account. I think that's really important to be able to do. And like Marilyn was saying, it's very complicated, and there's so many different value systems at play, especially the Western idea of property rights. More than anywhere, I think the West is holds that value up very high. So it takes effective collaborative work at policy-making bodies like the city council, and I want to do that. I mean, I want to be able to do that. I consider myself a moderate, and I consider myself able to represent industry interests along with, I'm a community member. I live here, and I want to maintain the quality of life as well. So it's difficult, but I tend to rely on building relationships with other people. And if I represent a minority interest at city council, I want to be a minority leader, and I want to be able to influence decisions, processes, and discussions by having good, positive, effective, professional working relationships with my fellow council members, with the mayor's office, and with the community at large. Thank you.
Thank you. Dick?
Sure you want me after that? Well, I guess I have several concerns. In your question there, for me it goes to one of the reasons I'm a plaintiff in the lawsuit. I'm sure you're all aware of that. I think a number of places the rezoning effort to date does not reflect a concern for how the neighbors would be affected, and particularly about maintaining property values. And I would think maintaining property values would be a core interest to anybody in your business. I think people need the right to protest. There's places in there where that doesn't seem to be happening. I think several times now we've seen proposals come before community council or between the city council, and I think everybody in the industry has worked out something that's logical, probably fair to the neighbors, and will make a decent addition to the city. And the city council likes to get its fingers in there and stir things around. And I am saying, wait a minute, I think we're doing something that we have no skill to do, we have no right to do it, and I think we should be listening to the people that put the package together and stay out of their hair. One of the things that really bothers me about our process is the time it takes to get a proposal through OPG. I think that's extensive, takes too long, costs too much money to do it, and I'm kind of tired of seeing these proposals come in and OPG say, well, we've only got a week left in the time frame, and then we have to make the decision. Many times I feel like I'm being railroaded into making a decision, and I don't think we have all the information we need. I think we should be talking about it a little bit longer, and I'd sure like to see that change. 2 years is too long and too expensive for most proposals in my book. I've talked about supporting businesses and jobs and this kind of thing, but you could also point out that on occasion I voted against annexation and or zoning of subdivision proposals, not because the proposal was bad from my perspective, but because so many people objected to the proposal. I think there's times when you see 20, 25, 30 people saying they don't want something to take place, it's time to back up and say, what are we doing here, folks? Isn't it time to maybe sit down and put something together so we can bring a little bit of peace and harmony to this proposal? We've still got, I think, subdivisions in this city that are still bitterly regretted by the people that live around it. I don't think we want that in our city. Thank you. I'll quit there.
Thank you. John, go on.
Boy, not a lot of room left to talk around this subject, huh? Ultimately, I think that this is an issue that oftentimes can be solved amongst neighbors and property owners if the city's willing to uphold the right to protest. And it's really a fine line. We don't have the right as a city, nor do independent citizens have the right to take anybody's property because they're not doing what we see fit with it. That being said, we also can't just allow them to go willy-nilly and build a skyscraper in the middle of the neighborhood somewhere. So I think ultimately if we keep the right to protest to the people and make sure that we uphold that and we acknowledge it and allow the people to work with the other property developer, whether or not it is a large developer or it's just an individual homeowner that wants to maybe put an addition on their house, I think that ultimately that could be worked out without having to come to city council all the time. And I think that if it does get to the point to where it comes to city council, if we have a council that is seen as somebody to work with and not against, that oftentimes these issues could be worked out maybe faster than what they are. They don't necessarily have to go to litigation against the city. I find that much like my wife says when the study came out about being a physician, is that even if you do a great job as a physician and you have bad bedside manner, you're more likely to get sued than if you do a horrible job, but you're likable. It's kind of the same scenario when it comes to government and whatnot. So I think that we need to really put it out there that we're somebody to work with and not against, uphold the citizens' right to protest, and then as much as possible allow it to take its own course before we intervene at all. And that's about it.
Thank you, John. The next question. Dr. Larry Swanson of the O'Connor Center for the Rocky Mountain West indicated at the end of 2008 that the construction real estate industry played a key role in economic development for Missoula. Yet in the current economic climate, this industry is being impacted the most, directly affecting jobs. In addition to global obstacles, local regulatory issues have at times contributed to negatively to a project's ability to move forward. What actions, if any, would you propose the city take to support the housing industry as an economic driver? Let's go to Ryan first on this question.
Well, obviously, I have a point of view that's based on my work experience as Government Affairs Director for Missoula Building Industry Association, and working as an economist both for the Public Service Commission and at a telecom company. You know, one of my jobs was to deal with potential investors coming to Missoula, and the two questions they ask are always, what's the market like, and what's the government regulation like? And you know, I could be quite confident about our market, saying that our banks were good on they're making loans. They didn't do a lot of the subprime loans that we saw across the country that devastated certain local markets. And then when it came to the regulatory side, you know, I got to the point where I just flat out lied, and I think some people, when they heard what exactly happened, I never saw them again. And it wasn't like I wanted them to go away. I just was being very honest. Well, you know, it takes this long to go through subdivision review, and if you're in this neighborhood, you're probably going to get hit with this exaction. And it was just based on my experience observing the city council, and I basically stopped doing that because it was a little bit embarrassing. So I think I would take a very proactive approach by balancing social and environmental concerns with the fact that housing is one of the two largest private sector industries in Missoula despite the downturn, and promote green building, which is both socially and environmentally conscious for Missoula. And that includes not just the way a building is built, but where it's placed, its context in regards to infrastructure. And I would put the city's money where its mouth is on it. And I think we just have to make the bottom line work for businesses in that industry by encouraging this market turn into green building, because the market is going there. And we need to promote it, we need to provide incentives for it, and we need to be embracing it sooner rather than later. So that would be the primary thing that I would want to do. The second thing I would want to do is get our infrastructure up to speed. Obviously, coming from the rattlesnake, I'm actually much more concerned about the sewer system, but there are also opportunities, I think, to provide a better road system, more parks and neighborhoods, including the north side. I think our downtown is quite vibrant, and I'm excited to see where it goes after the master plan is approved. So, you know, that I think we have to take a look at, and I agree with Kathy that we don't want to push people out of homes with taxes, but I think we need to start addressing the fact that we do not have the infrastructure that we need for even the citizens that we have here. So if we want more housing, if we want to promote even green building, we have to provide the infrastructure services that they need. So I think it's a two-sided thing. We need to promote the industry, foster good housing development, as well as provide the infrastructure support they need. Thanks.
Let's go to Ward 6, and we'll go to Kathy.
Okay. I really understand that the housing industry is one of our best paying employers in town. We had the unfortunate responsibility, we had to lay off a worker that we've had for 10 years who's now unemployed and does have a mortgage to pay. But when the recession went down, we had to cut. There's a lot of people in the same position that we are. My disappointment is that we're not looking for any ways to bring back jobs for those type of people. There's a lot of programs the city could look at. I don't know where all the funding will come from. We've got properties for first-time home buyers, young families. They go in, they buy this great little house in this great little neighborhood, but maybe it doesn't have egress windows. Maybe the furnace is only 60% efficient. We need to look at ways to rehabilitate some of these existing properties, build 50s, 60s, 70s, and make them safe, make them energy efficient, put people back to work. The same people that are now unemployed, whether they install the windows, do the insulation. There's a lot of ways the city could look at either securing grant money or coming up with a process of a low-interest loan that when some of these young people buy the house, maybe they could qualify for an extra $20,000, $25,000, go in and bring that house up to safe standards. I think the city right now is just not looking at ways to support the housing industry, and I think we need to back up and look at that. We provided the jobs that made it affordable to buy a lot of the housing stock. We need to keep moving in that direction and keep supporting the industry as a whole. And as far as real estate goes, that has been the lifesaver over the years. That's your retirement when you invest in real estate. That's maybe the way you're going to send your child off to college. Real estate is the only way to go as far as a nest egg. At least it was. And I'd like to see that, hold it, and so when a young family invests in that, they are going to make a return. It's only fair that they make a return. Thank you.
Marilyn.
Thanks. I really liked this question on the questionnaire, so I'm glad that you randomly asked it. Let me start by saying that I really agree with what Mr. Haynes said about the amount of time it takes for a subdivision application to go through OPG. It's unacceptable. I'm not really sure why exactly it takes 2 years for some of these projects to get to us, and then we're commenting on them at the last minute, but it's not acceptable for anybody involved in the process. Everybody is frustrated, so it would behoove everybody if we could figure out between administration, staff, and council, and I'm not placing the blame on any one of those entities, but we need to work on that. So what would I do if I can continue on city council is if we're not already finished with the zoning rewrite by the time the new term starts, I would really prioritize getting the zoning rewrite done, because all the builders, realtors, and citizens need to know what the rules are. You know, it's never comfortable when change is happening. We need to get there so we know what it's going to be. If everybody needs to be on the same page. Also, I support policies in the zoning rewrite and otherwise that allow small lot development and development in town near existing services. I think if we have more people living where infrastructure and goods and services exist, it'll help us start to rehabilitate existing infrastructure. The more that people are spread out, the harder it is to pay for infrastructure, so we need to use what we already have. And that includes, for me, development in town near resources includes adaptive reuse of old buildings. Instead of tearing them down, try to reuse them. And as Kathy was talking about, greening older buildings, and that's something that my husband and my company, we don't have a ton of money, so we've bought some older houses and then brought them up to energy efficiency and livable standards by today's expectations. This is something that people are really interested in Missoula, and I'm currently the chair of the Conservation Committee on City Council, and we have a citizen board that reports to us called the Greenhouse Gas and Energy Conservation Team, and they're working with us to come up with grants and incentives for people to make their homes more energy efficient, because that's a really big deal. That's a lot of money just going out through your roof and windows that you would rather have in your bank account. Finally, I really support the work that the Missoula Redevelopment Agency has been doing in public-private partnerships to open up buildable land in Missoula, and of course the two well-known ones are the mill site and the Intermountain lumber site, and I think that those kind of partnerships that access grants are really important to keep us building more houses. We need more houses in this town, and I think that the government can can facilitate some of these creative partnerships. And thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. Let's go to Ward 5, and we'll go to Dick first.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the housing, my belief, strong belief, is the housing industry is an economic driver in Missoula. And I would say that when the industry suffers, the whole city suffers economically and culturally. What I would like to propose to you folks and probably the MBIA and the councils, I'd like to see you put together a team and a proposal and ask a couple of city council people to be on it. I'm not looking to this, what I'm going to say here, to be part of what the mayor and administration want, but I would like to see it come from you folks in the business to sit down and review all the processes that go into getting a subdivision or a proposal through. I think there'd be some benefits to that. I think we could highlight some things that probably don't need to be done or cost too much money or take too much time. And I think that would help your industry considerably. I don't think that the city really can do a lot for your industry except to get regulations and taxes and that impediments to your business out of the way. Kind of like the old saying used here in the Army, lead, follow, or get the hell out of the way. And I think that's what the city needs to do now, is to get out of the way and let you folks come in and say, why is this necessary? And if it is necessary, what are the impacts on what you're trying to do? So that we have that out in the public and we could say, maybe we don't need to do that anymore, or maybe we put time frames on it so it doesn't take so long to get it done. And then maybe it's something that doesn't have to be done at all, because anything that doesn't have to be done and you're still doing is costing you money. I'm sure you all realize that better than I do. I think we need to deal some with that. Too many fees, taxes, conditions for approval, and regulations can all be detrimental to the housing industry. So I would certainly like to see you do it. And one reason I like a couple of city council people on that, you pick one that works with you and one that doesn't, or however you want to, and ask them to volunteer to be on it. And then when you come up with something as an end product, you could have somebody to make a referral back to council where we could put it on the agenda to be discussed and hopefully make some changes in our rules and regulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. Mike?
Thank you. My feeling is there's some things we can do in Missoula that will greatly benefit the housing industry, meaning the real estate and the construction industry, indirectly. And I'll speak to that for a minute first. If Missoula is an outstanding place to live, I think the housing industry will thrive. And if we look at the local economy as something that will make this an excellent place to live and really intentionally plan for the development and the strengthening of our local economy, that will, you can't deny the fact that people will want to live here and they'll want to build houses and expand the urban center. I think Missoula is going to expand as an urban center because it's a great place to live. And the economy is a big part of that. And I really believe in developing a strong local economy and continuing to strengthen it and develop it over time and doing it intentionally, meaning deciding what types of industry, professions, consultancies we want to have here and work towards setting goals for that type of a vision and then working towards them. For instance, some of the ones that I think are going to thrive, the tourism and the recreation industry I think are going to thrive here. I don't think there's any way to stop that. It's a wonderful place to recreate, to hunt, to fish, to go on the rivers. We're continuing to expand our ability to have conventions, I think. I think we should look at that some more. And that will continue. The wood products industry needs attention. It's getting attention now from the national level and locally, where people are trying to continue to see what we can do to help maintain and keep the wood products industry here and thriving. I think it gets less than the amount of press it should, because the jobs in wood products are absolutely excellent. And the resources that are used in the wood products industry are renewable. So I think we really have to value that as a community and continue to look and examine if we want to have mills here and how do we continue to do that, and shifting possibly what we produce in our mills to things like energy. The third thing I'd mention as far as the local economy and something I'd look at for the future is the potential and I'm not saying I'm totally sold on this, but the potential to develop the supercomputing industry here in Missoula. I've recently seen a presentation by a friend of mine who's in computing, and there's compelling reasons to look at supercomputing as a industry and a profession and consultancies that we would like to thrive right here in Missoula. There's a lot of good reasons for it, including that it produces high-paying jobs, for one. So if we develop and strengthen the local economy, again, I think indirectly, the housing and real estate industry will thrive. Similarly, I think we should continue to look at, I think Missoula does a great job of this, is having good parks, open spaces, and our infrastructure, and our urban forest, and looking at that to improve and develop and expand and value those things such that people that live here love to live here, and people from outside will continue to come here. We won't be able to stop it, and I think indirectly it will have a huge impact on the continued health of the housing industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Now, Ward 3, John, what actions, if any, would you propose the city take to support the housing industry as an economic driver?
Well, ultimately, some things that the city can do right off the bat, we need to start to streamline permit processes, maybe dropping permit prices. One way we can do that is we can put as many permits as possible online. Putting things online, for instance, when I was in Seattle for a limited amount of time, we were able to pull a plumbing permit online. It's simply a fixture count. You know, you're not having to submit a draft of what you're wanting to do, so it's just a fixture count. That stops the contractor from having to drive down to get the permit. That's time out of their schedule. I mean, this is all a snowball effect. There's times where, maybe not in this city, but when it does get bigger, you will sit in line for a permit process for a long time. And we need to start to figure out now how we're going to do that, not only to help stimulate things now, but down the road. So that's one way we can do it, and we can cut the prices of those permits. Of course, what that's going to entail is the city to tighten their belt. They got to start trimming down on their budget. They're going to argue that they can't cut these permit costs because it costs that much to run it. But we all know that that's always something that can be improved on when it comes to the city. So that's one way that we could very quickly start to at least try to stimulate some of the economy when it comes to real estate and building. Ultimately, in the long term, we need to remember that building and real estate directly stems from other jobs, obviously. Somebody who doesn't have a job can't qualify to build or own a home. So we need to find a way to bring an industry to Missoula that is going to stay here for the long term, is not going to be a direct competitor of other local small businesses, whether it's a biotech firm, computer tech firm, something of that nature, that is going to be around for a while. It's not going to have an enormous impact on our area as far as the amount of space they're going to take up or air quality, things like that. And with that, we need to understand that we can't just keep building homes and building over our sites of our industrial and commercial land. We can build homes till we're blue in the face, but if there's not jobs with people who have the income to buy them, they're just going to sit there. So first and foremost, we have to find an industry that is going to come here that's going to help keep some of these students here, to have the higher incomes, in order to have the trickle-down effect in the economy that we need. We can't just sit here and wait around for tourism, and we can't sit and just think that we're going to build government programs and put out government housing and expect people to find a way to buy them because they're low income. It's very easy to just tax more and build more. The tough part is how do we figure out how to make sure to enable those people to have a long-term good employment record with good income and keep that sustained instead of just giving them a home and hoping that they're able to make it. That's it.
Thank you, John. Ward 2, John?
3 words: jobs, jobs, jobs. In the Missoula, 35 years ago, I worked at Eddie's Bakery. When you worked at Eddie's Bakery, you were able to afford workforce housing. Blue-collar jobs over the last 3 decades, especially over the last 2 decades, have disappeared from Missoula. We have service jobs, and then we have the medical field, which is growing vastly and providing good jobs and everything. We should, as a community, be out, and I think I mentioned it in the last forum that I attended, forming coalition, and it's easier said than done, and it's going to take a long time, but, the city should take a more active role in partnering with MCDC, MEDC, the university, COT, and what we can do to attract blue-collar jobs to Missoula. It could be light industrial, heavy industrial, as well as, the high-end tech jobs and stuff like that. But not everybody's going to be qualified for high-end tech. And then the people in the middle class, middle of the road need housing. Housing industry was a major and dynamic economic driver in Missoula, and still can and will be, I think, in the future. But it's going to, I think, evolve coming out of this economic downturn a little bit differently, and it may not be as dynamic. And if they don't have anybody to build for, people with jobs, I mean, Montana is graying, Missoula is graying. People moving in, retirees aren't. They do contribute to the economy, but they're not providing jobs. And while our service sector has grown immensely and we're becoming a shopping mecca or a regional shopping center, that's fine also, but we're still not providing those type of jobs. The city, I feel, has burdened the business community, not only the building community, but business community, with excess fees and regulations. And then the county is a prime example. They just passed the fire sprinkler regulation, where I'm all for safety, but it's adding such a burden on the price of housing. The affordable or attainable housing, it might push a lot of people out of it. And if it's in the county, I would imagine not too distant future, we'll be having a discussion on city council about that. I don't think the city's involved in this because it's in the county, but the old Stimson Mill site where the Stevensville company wants to come in and put a plastic pipe factory on that site and provide up to 400 jobs. The city should be at the table seeing what we can do to help facilitate that, although it's not part of the city. I got the red paddle.
Thank you, John. We'll go to Roy now.
Okay. The economy is slowly recovering, and Missoula has fared relatively well comparatively to several areas around the country. If anything, supporting the housing industry as an economic driver, there's a few things that need to take under consideration. Dr. Swanson also brought up in, I believe it was March this year, to the Chamber of Commerce in a presentation that Montana will have one of the largest populations per person for age 65 and older in the United States. And that population is going to need the medical services and the services necessary that are provided in urban centers such as Missoula. I think that will create its own economic driver and its own unique needs for a community that will be, as John pointed out, graying, and also for the people that will be employed in those by those facilities. And I was working in heavy manufacturing until I was laid off temporarily out of Smurfit Stone. And I do know the value of those jobs, and I know the importance of those jobs, and we need to do everything we can to support them. The question is how can the city best do that? And I feel very strongly the city could make a commitment to buying local. We can scream till we're blue in the face that we want, good high-paying timber jobs, but if the city doesn't buy timber from Montana, you're you're running into a conflict of interest. Even if the cost may be a little more, you pay a little more for the community around you. One thing that I spoke with a couple of developers in my ward, and one thing that's been brought up several times is there's no clear path. There's all these conflicting interests within the city itself on its planning, engineering, parking, and they feel that the process takes so long. And so how best we streamline that is the city council needs to take the lead and approach proactively on how best to set the straight straight, strict rules so that the community knows what to expect. That's what a lot of the developers I've talked to have told me. They just want to know what to expect and not get changed mid-field or midstream or halfway through a project. And that's a fair thing to do to for someone, and I think City Council can do a lot for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Our next question, the final question actually, with regards to the zoning and subdivision update that has been in process, which items in the content would you support or object to, and why? How do you feel the city has handled the process of this rewrite? I think we'll go to John in Ward 2 first.
Okay, I'll start. Okay. I think everybody is on board that Title 19 was it's a pretty bad document, and something had to be done. And I'm not a user of the document, but listening to the people who do use it, builders, developers, and lay people who have tried to peruse it. Title 20, the new rewrite, rezone, is a welcomed document. With that said, there are items in there which I did not agree with, but as a city council, we are working through these items of interest. And I think the process is going along fairly well. There's been give and take on both sides. I think we're coming out to a happy compromise, or a semi-happy compromise. Not everybody's getting what they want. And if things continue to go along the way they're going along, I have no reason not to vote for it. Right now, I would support Title 20, but we're not done yet. And I don't know what, if any, surprises might come up to rear its ugly head. But the give and take on the council, and like I said, the conversations, I think within the next month or two, Title 20 will pass. As far as the city's process, a lot's been said about the outreach of OPG, and I've said publicly, and I'll say it again, that yeah, they try to do a good job in reaching the public with all the meetings and going out to civic groups and so on and so forth. But I still hear from citizens, business, and lay people, they have no clue what's going on. And I've asked the city to go the extra mile to reach those people through, basically another mailing, and let them know what is going to affect them in their particular zone. It's going to cost a little bit of money, but I think it's the obligation of the city to let them know. And I said it before that there's nothing wrong with an over-informed citizenry, and just to cover the bases. This way, no one can say that the city didn't try or go the extra mile. And I hope, and there still is time to do that.
Thank you, John. Roy.
Okay. I've talked with a lot of neighbors around in my ward, and oddly enough, zoning really hasn't come up nearly as much as I was surprised. I was expecting every door. I mean, the papers have got a lawsuit in there. Everyone, so I was really surprised that it hasn't come up as nearly as much as I expected. Obviously, though, our city has grown a lot, and a zoning update is needed, and we have to best go forward and to do that. And the city council right now is making the best approach I think it can to upgrading and making a forward-thinking, long-term policy for the city. And I feel that city council, it's yet to be determined. There's not a final document, and hopefully the community will continue to do its best to be informed. And the question is how much is it the city's responsibility, and how much money should the city spend of our tax dollars that we are talking about constantly trying to keep lower, informing that citizenry when there's already an open meeting process that is made available every Monday night at 7 o'clock and every Wednesday throughout the whole day, and at community council meetings. All of these processes are open government at work, and getting people out and participating in it is going to be a unique challenge, and that's something that the city developers and community activists need to sit down together at the table and go, how can we do this to actually get our citizenry involved to the extra mile, so that we don't come in at the last meeting thinking something's going to get passed, and you have 30 citizens come in and go, where? I didn't ever heard of this, and why am I, why is this coming down, and this will adversely affect me. And so that is a conversation that I feel very strongly the City Council can further and develop between the business community, neighbor activists, and those in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. Ward 5, Mike.
Thank you. I also support the city's effort to rewrite the zoning ordinance. I feel, from what I can tell, it went through a long and involved public process, open and inviting. Those processes are never perfect, public involvement process, but it seemed to have been done well. I like John Hendrickson's suggestion that maybe the city can take one more crack at some communication and zone-specific communication and let people know in this particular area, here's what's happening in case you haven't heard. I agree that over-communicating isn't a big deal if it's not too expensive and won't take a long time, so I like that suggestion. Some of the controversial items like ADUs could be added in later, potentially, as I mentioned during the answer I submitted. As some parties have suggestion, you could hold off some of the most controversial parts potentially and get the rewrite in, and then work on the tweaking over the next couple of years. But of course, I don't think there's any disagreement that the ordinance should definitely be modernized and simplified. And that's an important part of the City Council's job, is to keep ordinances updated and reasonably written. So as I mentioned, for the most part, I think given the complexity of the task, that the city has done a very good job. Now, the other reflection I have is we have 3 standing council members that are suing the city over this very process. So that's a little red flag, I would say. From what I understand, I read an article, I think, that the local reporter researched, that across the United States, it's very rare that a standing city council would sue its own city, or sue itself, or sue whatever they're suing. They're suing the city. So it is very rare. So I would imagine that would be, that action would be saved for the most dysfunctional type of a process, that someone would actually, standing council members would actually sue their own city. So it is a red flag, and I'm not sure what the resolution for the lawsuit will be, and everyone's probably waiting to see how it goes. But it is rather odd and, of course, unusual, and it's a red flag as far as how our processes are working, how the city council is functioning. And my personal feeling is I wish that I see Representative Mitchell is here, and I wish that she and Representative Haynes would visit after this forum, and go for a walk or have a cup of coffee and discuss pulling the lawsuit. And they've made their point. They're very upset with the way it's gone, and maybe work on something that John suggested, to do some more communication from the city, from the administration, from the council, directly to the citizens, and take a month or 2 to do that, and explain as best they can to people what's actually happening at the community level or the neighborhood level, so that if citizens who are uninformed need to get involved, they can at least express themselves and get in, even if it's at the tail end of the process. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah.
Well, as you might guess, I take extreme disagreement with my opponent here. It demonstrates to me a complete lack of understanding what the issue is. In the first place, this is not a rewrite, it's a rezone, and so you say, so what's the big deal? What's the difference? Well, a rewrite is what that allegedly we're doing now, and we object to it because it doesn't tell people how it will affect their neighborhood. And to rezone, the city has to do that. And so far, we're not doing it. I think if the process for rezoning were properly followed, citizens in each zoning category would have an understanding of how the proposals of rezone would affect their neighborhood and their home. I think in this process, there have been too many times that it seems clear that the governing body has already decided what the outcome will be before the public input, or in spite of the public input, has been made. I've watched a number of meetings that I attended and finally figured there wasn't much sense in being there because it wasn't being heard. I've run a lot of public meetings myself in my career. One of the things I always did is in one form or shape or another, I had somebody with a flip chart writing down the questions as they came from the audience. And then the next meeting, we tried to answer those questions or we published something. I noticed the Federal Highway Administration has done that in all the hearings they've had about Miller Creek and the bridge. Every comment is captured, and somewhere in their data later on, that question is answered. I've seen question after question come in, or statement after statement, and what do you get from our current process? Thank you, next. That, to me, is not good public input, or not working with the public. And that really bothers me. I want to make one thing very clear. This lawsuit that my opponent's having all this problem with is not the idea of stopping this process. I think we want the process. I agree with what John Donner said. I think Chapter 19 is a dead horse that needs to be gotten rid of. We need Chapter 20. But there are things in there that I think need to be done differently, and I don't think there's been any effort on the part of the people so far to listen to the people that come in and object to some of it. That's what's bothering me. If you ask, what would I support or object to? I'll support or object to anything that the people support or object to, because ultimately this is going to hit people in their neighborhoods, and they need to know what's going on. Anytime you stand on somebody's porch and it takes an hour to explain what's in this rewrite and how it might affect the neighborhood, you know it isn't going right. Thank you.
Thank you. I will go to Ward 3, John.
Excuse me. Much like everybody else, we definitely need to move on with Title 20. We need something new. We need to clarify some things. With that, there are definitely some things in there that I think are a red flag that borderline a rezone and not a rewrite. You can't cut minimum lot sizes down and adjust boundary lines within a rezone. Even though you're not technically making it, say, from an R3 to an R4, you have a moral obligation to make sure that people understand what you're doing and allowing for their properties to be done with. And we spend an awful lot of money on, for instance, promoting bike safety on television. We seem to have no problem flipping the bill for that. I don't see why we can't put out a notice on the television that everybody's glued to at 5:30 in the afternoon watching the news, letting them know that there's going to be a public meeting about this zoning issue. We need to make sure that we never ever let cost stop our notification to the citizens. That should be one of our things that we never let step in front of us. And it was brought to my attention, it really makes me want to say that, when it's brought up that it's rare that somebody sues, a city council member sues the city, what that tells me is that it's rare that we get politicians that are actually willing to stand up for what we want, that we roll over. So when you get somebody who stands up and is willing to sue the city, that tells me that they're on board with everybody else, that something is wrong, not that they have an issue personally with the city. I think we need to have more people that are willing to step up and do something like that and not just roll over with the process. That's part of the problem. It's part of the reason why we don't have the public notification properly that I think we should have. Because we've rolled over with the process. We've just said, well, we held 80 little meetings around the town. 5 people showed up at each of them. That's sufficient. It's not. That's all there is to it. So, Historic Homes had no problem sending out an ordinance notification to me for rezoning 2 months ago, I seem to get that on my doorstep, no problem. This is a pretty big blanket issue over the entire city. This isn't just my neighborhood. We need to have an outreach like that public, not just MCAT, not just Monday nights, not just Wednesday during the midday. People work, people have lives, they don't have time to sit and pay attention and flip through all their mail and wonder now whether or not their property is going to be rezoned. That's that.
Thank you, John. We'll go to Ward 1. Ryan?
Thank you. I absolutely support the progress towards Title 20. I do understand that people have concerns about it, and I'd like to extend one more time a hand and ask what would you like changed? And I've done that with MBIA, I've done that with ADAPT, and no one is called. So let's get to issues in the rewrite that I support or object, because I think that was the gist of the question. I support the addition of R3 zoning. I think the flexible setbacks and the opportunity for single-family homes on smaller lots will be excellent progress for the city. And I think it should occur in any neighborhood where we have single-family housing, or any neighborhood in Missoula. I think it protects single-family housing while at the same time providing options for affordable housing. And I also support the PUD overlay. I think the flexibility it provides will promote creative development in Missoula that can be both socially and environmentally conscious. It can support green development, low-impact development type of work, and I think we should be really excited about that sort of thing. As far as lot sizes and the issue of density, I think in context, when you think of density, you're going to have to think of the infrastructure requirements as well. And I don't think you're going to see any major change. I think most homes will stay the same, and people aren't rampant to go in and change neighborhoods. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there to simplify the question as far as zoning and density is concerned with the rewrite. So I think there's things we can still work out if you'd like to work those out. But generally speaking, I support the way it's measured in the new Title 20. I also support administrative adjustments. I think this is one opportunity to streamline process, and if the administrative adjustments are too large for some folks, I think you can work to fix that too. But generally speaking, I support that, and I do not support making policy based on personalities at OPG. Those personalities will change, the regulations will remain the same, and I think administrative adjustments are, generally speaking, a good way to streamline certain issues. I also support the use of the overlays that I think will be used for downtown, such as the pedestrian overlay and whatnot, because I think it's a good tool for our community to use, and as we develop Missoula into places like Midtown, I think those overlays will be good opportunities there as well. So those are some issues I support. Issues I might object to, I'm having some heartburn on the building height measurement on hillsides, but I think they're working towards change on that. And besides that, I overall support the proposed Title 20. And again, I would put out the hand, what would you like fixed? And I would be happy to work with you on that because I'm fairly literate on the zoning rewrite. Thanks.
Thank you, Ryan. And now to Ward 6, we'll go to Marilyn first.
Thanks. Let me talk about the process first. I think it's been an extensive process. It's gone 2 years in public comment before it's come to City Council, and I think that OPG did a really good job of reaching out and making people aware that this was coming. Let's face it, a lot of the staff presentations can be really dry, so I'm not surprised that not every single citizen attended those, but the opportunities were certainly there, and there was some good media coverage of it when it was going on. I'm pretty comfortable with the process. You can always improve. I think we're learning from this what we could do better, and I want to stress that the process is still going on. There's still opportunities for people here and people in other areas of interest in industry to come to City Council and let us know what you would like to have changed. Right now I'm having some conversations with people in the architect community about the height measurements because they're interested in building houses that people want to buy, and they have some technical concerns that we're talking about right now. So that's an example of something that we're still working on and something that's still people can come in and comment always. And I've been encouraging people to just contact their city council representative if they have something that they want to know more information about. Anyone can contact someone in public or at City Hall or on City Council and get the specific information that they want. So I'm okay with the process. It's never perfect. I wanted to mention that I was a little bit surprised that someone up here said that the options for City Council members are either to roll over or to sue the city. I just want to point out that there's a really big range of things that you can do in between those two options. There's a lot of things you can do to work towards resolution of conflicts that are somewhere in between that big spectrum. And we're doing that. Like John Hendrickson said, we've been working really hard as a council. I feel like we've been collaborating a lot, and there's been a lot of give and take on specific issues. I want to be on record as saying that overall I'm a strong supporter of Title 20. We need it. I mentioned it earlier in this forum. The 19 was outdated, and we can do much better, and we're getting there. Having said that I'm going to support it, there are some things that I did not get my way on these issues. And just as some examples, I'll show you, or I'll tell you some of the things that didn't go the way that I wanted. I'm disappointed with some of the decisions we made about minimum lot sizes for multifamily housing. I think that we basically made it a lot harder to build apartments in multifamily districts. That didn't go the way that I wanted. We could have done better with that. I'm disappointed that accessory dwelling units ended up being banished from certain districts. I think that that could help with the rental market, but that was a compromise with some of my council colleagues. And we can talk more about ADUs later on. It's an ongoing process. I would have liked to have more restrictions on the electronic signs, but I think that we made some improvements in the legislation there. There's compromise with the business owners. We tried to find something that worked for everybody. And as you also support the R3 zoning as a good replacement of the PNCs, which weren't always ideal, to say the least. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Marilyn. Kathy?
I'm kind of all over the place on this one. I do support the Chapter 20 rewrite with some changes. I think what we've overlooked, we tried to write an ordinance that we just want to lay over the city instead of looking at some of our individual neighborhoods. And I think that the people that are within that neighborhood should be able to go before City Council, should have been able to go before Planning Board, express their concerns, and felt that they were listened to. We don't have to blanket the whole city. We've got diversified neighborhoods. What may work in one neighborhood may not work in another neighborhood. And I think that we've lost sight of being able to work with the citizens in the community. I think that the City Council people, and we can argue on that, should have maybe reached out a little bit more specifically into their wards to let them know what was happening. You know, how is this affecting, if you've got a 50 by 130 foot lot with a single family house on it, yes, that can be divided and we can build again, because now we, instead of having 6,500 square feet, you can build a house on 3,000 square feet. And so people would ask, well, does this increase density? And they're told no. Well, yeah, you are increasing density. Your neighborhood may have been zoned R12 back in 1930-something, but your neighborhood did not develop by R12. You've got a lot of single-family homes in that neighborhood. Now, do we come in and say, because back in the 30s you were zoned R12 and we're going to make sure that you build out to R12, we're going to divide up the lots, make them 3,000 square feet? These people may not want to do that, and I don't think that we've talked to them on that neighborhood level. And I think that if the City Council people understood the zoning and how it specifically affected their ward, their neighborhood, they would have been able to sit and visit with the people within that ward, within that neighborhood, and everyone would have been on board. But right now, it's if you go before City Council, half the time you're not even sure if you're being listened to. Somebody may roll their eyes, or you'll make a statement and nothing ever happens. So I think that we need to get it back down to the citizen level, the citizens that elect these council people. The council people need to work for those citizens and not have a personal agenda rather than what those citizens need. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. On behalf of the Missoula Organization of Realtors, thank you all for speaking with us today. We'd like to give each one of you a brief closing statement. It's been an honor getting to know you, and we look forward to working with you all in the future. What I'd like to do is start at this end, and we'll just go on down. Kathy?
First of all, I'd like to say, no, I'm not angry, even though sometimes I may point and, I get a little excited when I'm talking about something. I'm not running this, I have no personal ill will at all towards my opponent. I think what we're able to achieve here is we're getting out this difference of opinion, this different point of view, getting it down to the level to where together, win or lose, we can make a difference. And I think that getting the citizens involved is the most important thing that we're going to achieve overall. I look forward to talking with anyone who wants to talk with me further, and I would be most grateful if I had support. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks again for having me here. I just wanted to tell you again how much I've enjoyed serving on City Council for the last 3.5 years. I consider it community service. I'm not doing it to further a specific personal agenda of mine. I have learned a lot since being on City Council about how cities work. I've been able to meet a lot of people and form some new partnerships, which has been productive for me. And I just love Missoula. I want to keep it a good place to live. It is a good place to live. Even on the days when we're talking about our worst problems, it's still a wonderful city, and I think we're lucky to live here. I would also be grateful to have the support of the MOR. I had your endorsement last time. I would like to have it again. I do enjoy working with you guys on your various projects, and once again, I want to thank you for being so interested in community issues. Not just elections, but all kinds of city issues. Thanks.
Thank you. Mike?
Thank you as well to everybody here for attending and for the MOR for holding this event. Even though it's part of the campaign season, having the public discourse take place with the candidates and the standing council members is very enriching, I think, and it's good to get the ideas out there and to hear some of the struggles and the successes that the city council has as far as continuing the planning processes and the policy-making processes that are going on. And I love my neighborhood where I live. We really like our little house on Reserve Street. I feel like I live in the best house in town because, of course, my wife and daughter are there, but we have a school across the street, so we have some open space where we can see the mountains. It's a beautiful view right in a residential neighborhood with a really great mountain view. And our neighbors are wonderful people too. They're both on each side of the house, they're both long-term residents in those houses, and it makes it really nice. And we've thought about, since our daughter has been walking right across the street to school, she's now going to high school, and we thought, well, should we move over to Sentinel right across the street from there, because it's kind of neat, but we'd have to leave our neighbors, and that would be a bummer for us. So we decided we're going to stay right where we are because of the wonderful little house we live in a great neighborhood. And I look forward to, if elected, I look forward to serving our town at city council level and getting deeper and more involved in policy-making processes and representing the ward and the neighborhood at city council. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Dick?
I'd say also thanks for allowing me to come here and vent a little bit. I guess I have to applaud you folks that you take time out of your day, because this probably doesn't pay any salaries or do much for your business directly, but it's good that you're here to hear what we have to say, even if it is a little on the strange side at times. I am sure MOR has on record my voting both city and legislature, so there's probably not much more I could tell you that you couldn't already figure out at any time you want. I'm open anytime to a question, a call about where I stand on an issue. Have a cup of coffee with you and we'll talk about it. MOR did endorse me 4 years ago, and I certainly hope that you could find it possible to do that again. I appreciated your endorsement. I hope I haven't been too big a disappointment to you in the daily workings of our our city council, and I would hope to support you and work with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, John?
Thank you for having me this afternoon. I appreciate all your guys' time. Glad everybody had the ability to come down and listen to all the different ideas. I would just like to clarify quickly that I do know you don't just jump from here to suing. So for those of you who didn't understand that, I know that. But you know, it's when I first came to Missoula, the first impression I had of Missoula was I got off the plane and my realtor met and showed me around town. We had one day to find a house, and we saw 34 different homes. And the first home that we saw, we walked in on Beckwith. My wife said, "This is it." And I said, "Wait a minute. We have 34 more to see." And we saw all 34 and ended up buying the first one. And he actually knew exactly what we were looking for. I wasted our whole afternoon not waving it, but he was very good at his job, and you know, he's still a good friend of mine. So I think that you know, that was really an aspect of coming to Missoula that when I came here helped sell me on staying here, because we did have another option, and Missoula from the get-go was a place that was just open and inviting. I still feel that it's that way. I hope that people see that me as a citizen, I'm going to be somebody that's up there on city council to not only listen to you if I don't agree or listen to you if I do agree, but just represent the majority as a whole for what we want as a community. Even if I don't agree with it, my job is to do what the community wants. And I think it's important that people understand they need to elect officials that are going to do what they want, even if they don't agree. That's that.
Thank you, John. Ward 2, John.
Thank you. And thanks for having us. I do appreciate it. When I took my seat 3.5 years ago, almost 4 years ago, I mean, I thought I was wise to the ways of the world, but serving on council was an eye-opening experience, to say the least. With that, I've enjoyed my time on council and such. I think, like Mr. Haynes said, you know, my voting record is open. I'm sure a lot of you know where I stand on certain issues. I've done a lot, I think, to foster the business community, build relationships, you know, with all spectrums in the business community, also with the citizens, not only in my ward, but when I vote, I look at the city as a whole and not just be ward specific, because sometimes one outweighs the other. I'm looking forward to serving 4 more years. I'm willing to give it, you know, another 4 years. And I just, you know, in my opinion, this upcoming city election is probably one of the most important ones we've had in recent memory. In the direction the city goes, the outcome will direct the city for many years to come. So I urge not only you, but the public to look at that and vote and support candidates accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Roy.
Yes, thank you guys for your time today, and thank you for letting me come down and speak with you all today. You know, my wife and I, we've been married for 2 years now. We bought our first home. We bought it in October, and we were both laid off in November. But at the time, the realtor, you know, he had a lot of time to show us around, and it was, you know, at that time the market was winding down very fast to come to a screeching halt in November, December time. But needless to say, I would love to represent Ward 2 and City Council. We have, you know, a lot of young families there, and mixed, you know, mixed housing and mixed densities and mixed, you know, class lines and you know, diversity, as a lot of people say. Ward 2 is very diverse, and I feel very strongly that I could represent that diversity. You know, not just for the young families that are trying to make a go and a living right across from Denny Washington, our neighbor, railroad tracks, to the people up at Grant Creek, to over in the new developments over on behind Home Depot, Hellgate Meadows, and whatnot. It's a great, you know, I think I've had a really great opportunity serving my local union, and it's given me the building blocks and the strength to go forward and develop, hopefully develop strong, sensible policy for the city. And you know, one of my greatest accomplishments with United Steelworkers was we encouraged and fostered the development of a forest policy for a union that represents 177,000 pulp and paper workers, and it was our local that helped assist in doing that. And, if we can do, if we can do that at a local level and represent those 400 guys well, I feel very strongly I can do it for a ward of, around 5,000 registered voters, but a lot more than that. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron.
Thanks, Rusty. I think many of you know the amount of work I've done in terms of coalition building between MBIA, MOR, the Chamber, and other groups, and I hope that history speaks for itself strongly for you. That was not just because I was paid to do it, it's because it's something I wanted to do. It was a good platform for me personally to be working for the MBIA to do that, and I value the relationships that I've built over that time. And many people have asked, well, now that you're not being paid, are you going to still be nice to us? I'm like, oh yeah, actually, the niceness was always real. It wasn't just a way to earn money. So I look forward to being able to continue that work. It's important to me. I think it's an important way to heal some of the polarization that's occurred in Missoula that keeps good work from happening, keeps good projects from going up, and keeps us from embracing our city. And I would like to see that change. I think you'll find that I tend to be a little bit more liberal than many of you may have experienced, but I get along with the conservative side very well because I have respect for everyone's point of view, and I don't see a single way to achieve a problem. And you will always have my ear. Whether you're a citizen or a member of MOR, I think you need to be involved, and I will support you and listen to you and constantly work towards solutions that fit our community and fit the needs of your industry as well as other industries and citizen groups. I hope that for my ward that I can provide a good literate point of view when it comes to planning and development, because the north side, Rattlesnake, and downtown especially are going to see changes, and I think they are good models for other parts of the city, and we can make things work. And so I'm excited to have the opportunity to represent Ward 1. It's a great ward. It's where I grew up, and I look forward to representing them. So thank you for your time, and good luck.
Thank you, Ryan. And again, thank you one and all. Those people in the audience that have the little sheets that we have for your assessment of the different candidates, if you'd please give them to Ruth here before you leave. Very much appreciate that. And
I can help you fill it out.
once again, we are dismissed. Thank you.